So it's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. When I was a little girl, my grandparents used to come visit our family from Holland for several months at a time, every so often. And I connected with my opa. I just loved to hang out with him and just talk to him. I had to speak Dutch, unlike the way I spoke with my parents. They spoke to me in Dutch and I'd answer in English, but with him I had to speak Dutch. But I remember seeing him read the same little black book every day, and I said to him, Opa, so why do you read the same book every single day? And he said, Donna, the Bible is a book you're never finished reading. Amen. And that's kind of how I feel about this book of Ruth, because I was planning on speaking on this for 2020. Then 2021 came. Nope, 2022. So I keep reading, keep studying, and everyone's saying to me, are you ready? Are you ready? And the more ready I try to get, the less ready I feel. I start reading things and start wondering about this and that, and I got to study that other thing more, and wow, what does this mean? So I'm as ready as I can be. But there's a whole lot more, because my opa was right. The Bible is a book you're never finished reading. Each time you read it, God reveals something else. So I hope that each of you take something away this weekend that you didn't know before from the things that the Lord has shown me about this book. So I'm going to start. Tonight we're going to have kind of an introduction. Tomorrow we're going to get into the meat of the whole story. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read and then talk. So I'm going to start now. Oh, first I want to tell you some of the historical background of Ruth. Ruth took place over 3,000 years ago. It was during the time of the judges, when every man did what he thought was right in his own eyes. They didn't have kings yet, so God would set judges over Israel to try to keep them in line or direct them, tell them what to do. The author is unknown for Ruth. It's believed it was Samuel, but that's not known for sure. So I'm going to start with Ruth chapter 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. So I'm going to stop right there. They lived in Bethlehem. Bethlehem means house of bread. They were Ephrathites, and Ephrathite means fruitful. So here they are living in the house of bread. Their name means fruitful. There's a famine. They're worried. So they decide, well, we're going to go to this other land. Moab was known for fertile ground. It was a profitable place to live. But they worshipped all kinds of other gods. Their main god was Chemosh. Chemosh was known for human sacrifice of babies, people. He's known as the god of war. He's also known as the fish god. Moab, the name, was one of the sons of Lot. So the Moabites were from Lot's relationship with his daughter after they left Sodom. The Ammonites were from his other son Ammon when they left Moab. The Ammonites, their main god was Molech, and it's believed Molech and Chemosh may be the same god, but they're not sure. And I found more information on Molech than Chemosh. And I just want to explain it to kind of paint a picture to you of what went on in Moab, where Ruth grew up. Molech was rather brutal in his desires. The priests of Molech told the people that he desired human sacrifice in order for things to go well for them to win battles, for their crops to prosper. So people were told, even if they didn't want to, that they needed to sacrifice their child. Molech was this idol made of metal that they made, and it was a big furnace. and his abdomen was like a big pot belly. And he had these hands like a platform that were out. And people would bring their baby and put them on Molech's burning hot hands. And the baby would roll into the fire and burn to death. So this was common. This was done quite often. And they've even done excavations where they found remains of children and little inscriptions that would lead you to believe Molech. And while the child screamed in agony, the priests would beat these drums to drown out the screams so the parents wouldn't be too upset. Because it was upsetting to give your child, but they felt that they had to do it because they were directed this way from the priests. So this is where they were moving. They were moving to Moab. But of course, you know, there was food there, prosperous, probably entertainment, a lot of nice other things. So I'll go on. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now the word, when they went to live for a while or sojourn in Moab, the Hebrew word is gur, and that means to live temporarily. They didn't intend on staying there permanently. It was just a temporary thing until things got better in Bethlehem. But you'll see as the story goes on, it becomes more permanent, and which is what happens in life when you settle somewhere. You don't intend on staying, and sometimes that's just what happens. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her two sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her two sons and her husband. So they had settled, if you could see the map, in Moab. Moab is about 40 to 50 miles away from Bethlehem. Now to us, that's like going from here to Rutherford. It's really not that far. But for them, it required a journey around the Red Sea, through mountains. It was not easy. And back then they didn't really travel alone. That would be very dangerous. You'd have to go with a caravan or a group of people and travel. So it seemed like a great distance to them, and in our world, it's really not. On foot, it's about 7 to 10 days of walking. Their names have meanings. Elimelech means God is my king. Naomi means pleasant. Mahlon means ill or sick. Chilion means puny or disappearing. Ruth means friend. And Orpah means back of the neck. So you'll see why later. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. Now, return home, when I read that, Naomi's returning home, but Ruth and Orpah had never been to Bethlehem. So for them, it's the first time going. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. So they all together started on the journey back. Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I'm too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait till they grew up?" So you have to figure Naomi and Orpah, they were married for 10 years. So I don't know how old they were. Let's say they got married when they were 15. Maybe they're about 25. So if they say they're 25 and she has a baby and he grows up, yeah, they'd be too old themselves really to start a family with the young man. "No, my daughters, it's more bitter for me than you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." At this they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. So here we have an example of two people on a path, two Gentiles with a Jew, on the path to Bethlehem. One continues, the other turns back. And it's like that in our Christian walk. A lot of people start on the journey, but not everybody continues. The word kissed means to love lightly in Hebrew. And that's what Orpah did. And it reminds me of how Judas, with a kiss, betrayed Christ. And Ruth set them free from whatever bound them to her. So Orpah left, but Ruth bound herself to Naomi. She clung to her. And Ruth says, this is the famous, let me see if this will work. I'll try it this way. Oh, okay. "Do not urge me to leave you or return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." And this is the famous portion of the book of Ruth. And in many Jewish weddings, this is read because it's so beautiful. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" Because you have to imagine they were pretty well off. They were successful. Naomi was probably dressed nicely. They probably had a lot of goods and things that they brought when they left. And when they came back, she was a poor widow. She had no husband, no sons, and a Moabite companion. So it must have been very shameful for her, because everybody's abuzz saying, "Oh my gosh, is this Naomi?" So she says, "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara," which means bitter. "Because the Almighty had made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." Anyone that's ever participated in a Seder, the bitter herbs are called marar. And that's what Naomi is saying. She's not just saying, "Oh, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara." No, she's upset. And she's saying, "Don't call me Naomi. Don't call me pleasant. Call me Mara," because she's bitter. She's very bitter. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. And tomorrow we will get into the rest of the story. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.